Well, hello there. I'm Taryn. Well, first of all, thank you for buying my tutorial. For the entire duration of that following session, I would imagine that you're sitting right next to me. And just to make it a little bit more easy for you, I'll, show you this, all this. One of the most important things about organic modeling, or any modeling for that matter, is that you're relaxed and focused while you're doing that, not tense and focused. So one of the main reasons, that we want to get rid of and we have to get rid of is the tool itself. So in other words, the tool should not be in the way. To accomplish that, we have one great advantage. We will only be using very few tools, not too many tools, features in that case. So I will show you what these features do, and you should find the way the application you are using is doing them, and then hook them to hotkeys. I will be using lightwave, but you should be able to follow along with anything, Maya, Max, Modo, doesn't matter, especially Modo is no problem whatsoever. So lay them out first, and then we proceed with the, remainder of the secrets of organic modeling. Alright, let's go. So let's have a look at the features we're going to be using. I've prepared this sidebar to display all of the features that we're going to be using. In fact, it displays even more than we're going to be using, but I've prepared this little block to add the little extra features that'll be in there. So, for instance, we have a box primitive, and although I'm just going to make one box in the very beginning and then never again, it's still in there just so the list is complete. And let's center that. F2 centers it. See, every of these buttons has a little shortcut displayed, and that's what I'm going to be using. This means, for instance, Control T, and the lowercase means just the key T. So, and so forth. Plus T would be Shift T, and so forth. So, we're going to have symmetry mode. So the symmetry mode is very, very important. It's like a foundation. In lightwave, the symmetry is done over the world's center axis. So everything you do on the right side will be mirrored to the left side. So now if I have nothing selected, that would mean I move everything. But because there's only one polygon completely on the right side, if I move around, see, it gets mirrored over to the other side, whatever action I do. Same goes for rotate. Alright, so symmetry mode. And then for the selection, we have a polygon selection, and we have a point selection, and we have an edge selection. Yes, Lightwave 9 has now edges. That's just pretty, but I'm not really used to it. In fact, I don't even need it much. It comes in handy here and there, but for the most of the time, I don't think we're going to use it. At least not in this tutorial. It's not going to be necessary. So for the polygon selection, there are a few more nice features, and that would be, for instance, to expand the selection. Expand, contract. Expand, contract. So those features, that feature is absolutely beautiful. If you want to select an area of interest, and you want to, of course, you just have to click on one polygon in that area and then expand the selection, and you get the surrounding. Very, very handy. It comes in handy very often. Same goes for points, of course. You pick one point, because we have symmetry on it, picks the respective mirrored point, expand the selection, and then we have all the points selected. And if we have all the points selected, we can't contract anymore, because it wouldn't even know where to. But that doesn't matter. What matters is a good feature, expand and contract. What does it do with edges? Probably. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. With edges, it's still kind of neat. Alright. So, yes. Now, the subpatch, formerly known as meta NURBS. Those subpatches, they give us a real-time preview, and almost more than that, of our subdivided cage, while we are still working on the low-risk cage. See, I tweak the low-risk cage, and it shows us the subdivided result. I have the subpatches set to 6 divisions, which is decent enough. We don't need to go higher than that. And in the perspective viewport, I think by default it would show the cage and it would show guides, but they become very soon distracting. So I usually turn them off. You know, if you have hundreds of polygons, I mean, those things they just almost occlude the actual geometry underneath the actual model. So let's turn those off again. And the same goes for the grid. Since we're doing organic modeling, we don't quite need, any kind of real reference, to the rest of the world, so to say. And there are not going to be any kind of wacky precision moves, really. So we don't need the grid, and don't let it distract us. Usually when I work, I most of the time have just smooth shade turned on, because that shows pretty much the object how it would look when it was rendered. But just so it's easier for you to follow along and to see what's happening with the topography, I'm going to keep it on wireframe shade for most of the time. So what else do we have? Okay, so let's say we have polygon selection. Whenever I hit, and whenever I was in some kind of feature like move or something like that, to get into selection mode, I usually just hit space and then you go there. If you would continue to hit space, it would toggle through the selection mode. But that's not as relevant. I often actually go directly there with the respective shortcut, like Control H in that case, would give me polygons. Control G would give me points. So yeah, I use that a lot too. So let's pick a polygon and move it around. Alright, let's move. And then there's rotate and stretch. But the thing about rotate and stretch is what I have is I use the mouse pointer as my pivot. That is a very, very helpful way, like a very, very useful way of working, especially in organic modeling. We don't have to do any kind of, your precision moves where you need to be exactly in the center of your selection or anything like that. In fact, it would be rather distracting. Although in lightwave you easily can do that, just hitting Shift F8, F8, and then it would always use the center of your selection. Because it is symmetry mode is turned on, the left side gets completely disregarded. That's why the center of the selection is just the center of the selected polygon on the right side. But we don't use that because it really doesn't, it just restricts what we can do with stretch and rotate. So Shift F5 brings us back to the mouse pointer as our pivot. And we can do some very nice and intuitive rotating and stretching. It's very helpful, especially because of the symmetry, because we can make use of it to do, for instance, several things at once. It's very nice. It becomes very intuitive very quickly. And also, same goes for then using stretch in the perspective viewport. Let's show it to you like that. Like for instance, if I wanted this polygon to be flat like that, see, then I would just go into the perspective viewport and do it over here. You get to see some very complex changes, and without having to worry about, orientation or anything else. So it's very easy. Also because we use the mouse pointer as pivot, again, you can do a lot of intuitive things here directly, very quickly. So it's super helpful. So, mouse pointer as pivot for stretch and rotate. What else do we have? So we have the extender plus. Of all the key features, this is the number one key feature, right after symmetry, which would be 0 then. Never mind. Anyway, so the extender plus is an extrusion type of tool, or some other applications might have it as a kind of a bevel type of tool, or in the former versions of lightwave this was called super shift, and before then it was called smooth shift. The extender plus is really the distilled down solution to what you wanted to do with that. It's hooked to Shift F, so every time I hit Shift F, plops, it does that. what it does is it, in essence, kind of extrudes the selected polygon and creates new geometry around that polygon, as you can see. See, this is the polygon we've extended, and these are the new polygons this action has created. Now, the interesting thing about that is that it does that by leaving the polygon as it is. Like, for instance, right now, if I would hit extender plus, you wouldn't see that anything has happened. So let me use stretch right after that, and then you can see it has created new geometry. There we go. So, and that's what we're gonna do a whole lot of times, because that way every tweak we do consciously. You know, if you were to, for instance, use any kind of tool that automatically kind of like extrudes polygons out of your mesh, that would end up with some rather involuntary kind of tweaks. And so it's really best to do it like that. Select your polygon, hit extender plus, and then do the tweaks, whatever you want to do. The only wacky thing now in Lightwave 9, as I have found out, which was rather funny, I wanted to hook it to a shortcut and had to find out that there are two extender tools, and they are both just called extender and not extender plus. So for instance, if you were to look for it in your commands, you know, you search for extend, and it gives you the extender number 1, which is in additional commands. And that's not the one we use. We are looking for the next one, which is in modeler tools. So the extender in modeler tools. Hook that to a shortcut. I have it on Shift F. I like it there. You might want to put it wherever you want to, but that's what I recommend. So, all right. So let's just create some more geometry here, just for fun. There, pick a few polygons, extender plus, and stretch. Bring it into new position. There, ta-da. And now let's do something else, and that would mean topographical changes, tools to help with altering the topography. So what we've got there, for example, is, well, this is kind of a stupid geometry to show that right now. Right, let me do this. Let me extend one more time. Ta-da-ta-ta, like that. So, spin quads. What spin quads does is it rotates the split edge between two quads, two polygons that are made out of 4 points each, 4 vertices each. So if I hit spin quads, it does this. See? It rotates the way those two polygons are split. Now let's look just at those two polygons in flat shaded and, you know, not subpatched face view. And you can see how the edge that separates them both gets rotated through the different points that could separate it, while they always stay quads. Now, if you do not have that feature in your tool, what you can do is you just hit merge to merge those two polygons, and then split them along an axis that would turn both of them back into quads, just along a different axis. Merge, different axis you want to use, there, split, and there we go. Spin quads does it all automatically. Just watch out when you have to do that manually, if you did have to do that manually, which would be very sad, that you don't do something like this, which would turn those two polygons into one triangle and one n-egg, which is with 5 vertices. We really do not want that. We always want to stay in quads, and it happens automatically, so you never have to worry about that, as long as we stick with that method. There we go. The other thing, although it always looks a little bit broken, is that we can turn off subpatches in Lightwave per polygons. So we can have polygons selected and turn off the subpatches there. That can come in handy if, you know, if you do want to kind of like, you know, see where the actual points are sitting temporarily, just very quick, you know, just for orientational purposes. And you can do some tweaks, you know, for instance, you know, like so. And you know, turn on and off the subpatches at any time. Very handy, because we always want to also have, you know, get a feeling for our geometry. You don't want to lose a feeling for that. All right, so that's some kind of funny bone, whatever that is. So spin quads, and I use spin quads in many ways, not just to just alter the topography like that, but also sometimes to optimize my geometry. For instance, most of the time the idea is to create a very smooth flow of the edges. So for instance, here right now we see a break in that flow. Let's say we want to follow this edge, and this looks almost like an open wound there. So let's pick 2 polygons, spin the quads until we have that edge continue through, and then we get one redundant polygon over here. This construction actually is 2 quads, but if we merge them, we have just 1 quad, and that's what we want in that case. Same here, spin quads, merge, and there we go. So this optimizes the geometry quite a bit. What this also creates or generates is it creates redundant points that are connected to no geometry. What we can do there is we use the point statistics, deselect all of the points just to make sure we didn't, overlook a selected polygon point. And then we select all of the points that are connected to 0 polygons, plus, and delete them. Go on. So now everything is neat and clean again. So the other thing we have is a truly wacky tool, and it's a really neat trick to really get to some very nice topography, to a very interesting new way geometry is formed, and that is called collapse polygons. So what we do for that is we hit extend and collapse polygons. This gives us a whole bunch of triangles, which we then merge back into individual quads. So out of 3 polygons, I've made 4 polygons. In that case, out of 3 quads, I've made 4 quads. And that comes in handy very, very often. In fact, it's one of those, I almost like to call them magic tools, because there are places where you start to wonder, oh my god, how do I, for instance, get rid of this star, Of course, this is a very easy one. You could just go ahead and just do spin quads, and you've got it already reduced by 1 edge, and then you could go ahead and do it again, and then you have basically no star here anymore. As you can see, that would, translate to other locations, but it ends up being prettier than it used to be. And another way of tackling that is again with that collapse polygon method. Unfortunately, this is not the most interesting mesh to really show that off, but let's for instance do that over here. Extend, collapse polygons. I have that actually hooked to F4, you can see that over here. And then merge polygons, and there we've got a new different topography. Like so. Spin quads. Here. Alright. So then we've also got some larger deformation tools, as opposed to drag points, which I so love, and move or rotate or stretch. We have all of these, and especially rotate, stretch, and move, with a fall-off area. So that means that we don't just move around the whole thing, but we can use the tool called magnet, which allows us to define a fall-off area with our right mouse button, and with our left mouse button we then just drag or move the the geometry by with the influence based on the center of our select area and the fall-off area. And the same goes for stretch, but there it's called pole 2, and we select our area of influence and then can stretch. And right now here, for instance, I'm just doing a 2-dimensional selection. That means for the other axis it just extends to infinity, but we can confine that too, by selecting our area here, and then you can see what happens. Only that area gets influenced. It's very beautiful for larger scale tweaks, if we want to do larger design changes and such. There. And the same goes for rotate, and there it's called vortex. All the same stuff. Ta-da. Yeah, I use those quite a bit actually. So. Okie dokie. So you might want to set up all these tools and hook them to hotkeys, and you might have to go back, just to look through it one more time, just to make sure that you have all of that stuff laid out. Yeah, this is what we're going to be using. And I could show you all of this a little bit in action for a second, just for fun. Let's use, for instance, that stretch tool. Ta-da! Extend, move, stretch. Extend, move. And let's pick some polygons right here. On the sides, extend, stretch, stretch, there. Spin quads, extend, collapse, merge. We can do the same thing here, extend, collapse, merge. And you can see how that alters the topography right away. It's a very entertaining way of modeling, really, trust me. It's fun. What is that? Never mind. Alright. What we can do here, extend, stretch, drag points. This is the most common way we use it. Extend, stretch, and drag points. Happens very, very often. Stretch from the side view, extend, stretch, rotate, rotate, extend, stretch, in all of the viewports, piece by piece. Extend, stretch, undo, redo, and stretch a little bit and rotate a little bit. And there you go. This is how it can be used. So don't worry, this is not our modeling session. We're still in the preparation. I mean, I shouldn't hold you back much longer from, doing your preparations, because you should definitely do your preparations right now. And I'm gonna, do everything to distract you in the meantime by doing all this nonsense, just to give you a little bit of an idea what it would be like, what it will be like to model like that. Spin quads. Yep. See, spin quads. You can see how you get very fluent edge flow in there very quickly. It's very easy. You can model all sorts of nonsense that way. And it's actually way too much fun. I love letting the geometry tell me what it wants to be. That's one of those things. But I shouldn't waste much more time. And we should get right to it. See, spin quads. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. One more thing before I forget, actually. God, it's too much fun. I see, for instance, here, I say expand selection, and it gives me that entire, what would that be, like a horn? And I'm going to use perspective to rotate my geometry to where I want it. Let's say, for instance, stretch, and then extend, stretch it small again. It's a silly example, of course. Contract selection, rotate, extend, rotate. Nonsense. So, but as you can see here now in the viewport, I have the wireframe shade turned on, but only with a smooth shade you can actually see what's happening here. I mean, you get a much nicer preview of your geometry. That's why I like that. And I often just leave it like that and select the area that I'm interested in, the polygons of that area, to see the topography there temporarily. Just, temporarily. And that's that. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. So yeah, goofing around is another key feature. And see also other use of using spin quads to really just alter the topography. Alright, but this is not our tutorial. this is just the preparation. Alright, so get ready, and then let's go into the main part of the secrets of organic modeling. So, now I assume that you're all prepared and that you've got everything hooked to hotkeys and you got all the functions available. At least I hope so. So I would say let's go for the real thing. What we have done before is starting with the box, and we'll do the same again. Don't forget to switch off symmetry before you center your geometry, and then you switch symmetry back on. Alright. We're gonna work for most of the time with the sub patches turned on, and for you I switch to wireframe shade in perspective viewport. So we're gonna model a head. Yes, I know it's very common. Most of the time heads get modeled, but this time it's to illustrate to you all the, the nice little modeling tricks. And the head has one of the beautiful things about modeling a head is a head has pretty much all the different type of surface curvatures in there, and all the kind of wacky fine little details that are very that are basically extending or explaining all of the things, all the modeling maneuvers you would have to do, even if you were modeling a body or a leg or a foot or some funny plant. It doesn't matter. So the modeling techniques are actually shown very nicely by modeling a head. So what we're going to do is we're using the extender to get some more geometry right away. And what we're doing right now in the beginning is anyway just generating new geometry, that's all, and we bring it into somewhat of a place where we might need it. So I'm starting in essence by creating the skull first, the head first, and let's go right to the to the neck area. So at first I'm preparing a general shape, almost like a silhouette if you wanted so. And to do that I would like to have a little bit of a neck already, and even a piece of the shoulders. So I'm going to extend down what would be the neck area, and then extend again to stretch out a little bit of a shoulder area. Zoom out a little bit more. There we've got some kind of shoulders. A little bit of that. Move a little bit back. There you go. And I use drag points to shape a little bit more of a rounder shoulder right there. And let's make some room for what would become a jaw. And I pick the polygons where I want the jaw to come out, extend it, stretch it, and there we've got some geometry for the jaw already. Go into the frontal viewport and do a bit of shaping. I look in the top view, and alright, there we've got some kind of a jawline. Pick the top of the head, stretch a bit, and we could just use this already to shape the top of the head as opposed to extending it one more time. And that's all. Also, when you do low-res geometry like that, you kind of want to make a good judgment when you want to extend something, when you want to add new geometry and when you don't. So what we also want to do right now is to get a nicer flow. Right now you can see how this is all, like this area is really ended by, it's like in a cul-de-sac, how they say. And we don't want that right now because we want a nice smooth head. So I'm going to spin quartz right above the jaw like that. So that way the jaw goes right into, like, it makes a border around the facial area. So, alright, we've got a starting point. Just gonna make the skull a little bit more. I'm gonna take care a bit more of the volume of it, and shape a little bit around the back, just so, you know, we get a nicer shape to start with. Alright. Okay, so we can jump right into it, and just let's make a nose where we want a nose. So we picked some polygons around it. I would never start with just one polygon, but just grab 2 polygons right away and extend them, stretch them smaller, bring them a bit forward, and then I grab some polygons for the nostril, for the nose tip and nostril. I'm gonna stretch them so I can see them nicely, extend, stretch, and, you know, bring them somewhat into a shape that we might like. Alright. And although this is not exactly necessary right now, I could, for instance, do a spin quad. You can see then, you know, how the topography would instantly become much more pleasant. And well, what we can do too is, out of experience, and you can imagine that too, we would want to use some more polygons for the eyes. So I'm going to actually extend the forehead to generate more geometry to play with. So it's really, at this point, truly just about generating material. It's like putting sort of lumps of clay on it in a way. And, you know, bring him a bit more into position and bring him to where we want to add detail, for example. Like, for instance, now we want to add eyes. So I think 3 polygons are quite decent for eyes. It's something we can use. So let's just extend those. And let's zoom in. Shift A in lightwave. And just make the outline of your eye. And make it, imagine as if the eye was entirely open. So it's almost like just a, you know, almost like the hole in the skin. And in the front view, it looks like it's already a decent shape. And side view is way the heck stretched. So we're gonna stretch that flat again, like that. And you can almost start seeing that something's happening. And making them a bit larger, because just, you know, whenever we add the eyelids, which is what we're gonna do right now, it's gonna get smaller. This is the very outline, the outermost outline of the eye so far. So let's extend it again and stretch it a bit smaller. This time we just stretch it a little bit smaller because we're going to stay very close to that outline. I'm going to make the upper eyelid come a bit forward and the lower eyelid a little bit to come forward. Or at least what is going to become the lower eyelid. And I'm going to watch out that the angles of the eye are a little bit behind the border, the outline of the eye. Same with the angle to the inside of the eye, diagonal, like so. Alright, a little bit of reshaping and a perspective viewport, and then I'm gonna extend it again and stretch it smaller and a little bit back. See, I do that in the side view, and now in the front view I do the same, a bit smaller, and I extend it again and stretch it all the way back into the head, a little bit wider, and in the top view I'm rotating it. And we're going to keep these polygons, don't delete them. They are very good, they're good for you. So, now we've got something that doesn't look too much like eyelids yet, but we're going to change that right now. We're going to go around the eyelids, just take the top part of it, and extend it. Stretch it. I'm now here in the side view, as you can see. Just follow my mouse pointer, you'll see. Drag points to bring them somewhat into place. There. And at any point in time you can start, you know, thinking about the anatomy already. And things I've observed about the way the skin is above an eyelid that I always have in mind when I do this type of modeling. And I'll show them to you as we progress a little bit more. So now we've got already some kind of a little fold here, but it's way too deep. So let's go straight into that here. I use stretch. and do it like that. So now we've got a nice little fold already. And also I don't like that kink here. When you look at it in the perspective viewport, you can see how the wires kink. It doesn't have to be like that just yet, because we're not too much in the design of it. It's at this point just preparing the geometry. So also I don't like how this all looks at this point right now. So I'll see if I address that now or later. Let's see, let's spin quartz already right now and see if that is something we might want to have. But it's pretty early to make a lot of judgment there. So I would say let's move first to some other place. So sometimes, you know, especially in the beginning, you don't want to waste too much time on details. It's just about preparing it. So let's say we want to have some cheeks. So I take the cheek area, extend it, stretch it smaller. Now we see pretty nicely where this is. You know, it's rather clean, of course. I'm going to pick the surrounding polygons, the new one and the previously existing ones, and spin quartz. So that way you can see how that edge flows much nicer through and how it abruptly ends here. Now we haven't dealt with that area yet, so we don't have to worry too much about how it extends further, but we will very soon. So, okay, let's deal with that section right now, because while I'm modeling, I like to enjoy looking at my model. I go crazy if I don't like what I'm looking at, even at this early point of view. So I take the worst places and already deal with them. So I extend that area, stretch it smaller, go to frontal view and, you know, stretch it a bit more slim, and I'm starting to deal with the topography right away. So spin quartz, just so it gets a nice flow. You can see how it grows like that. And I know that I have already some redundancy over here. I'm going to get rid of that. See, I spun quartz and now I have all these redundant geometry, these polygons, and I just merge them. So gone they are. Now it's much more clean. So very often it happens that you create new polygons that you will eliminate again. And it's also perfectly okay to make mistakes, so to say. That's just part of the process. So you know, every move doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of experimentation. Yeah, you'll see. So yeah, now we can go into that area that has developed thanks to our extension of the nose, the sides of the nose bridge. And we rotate it around, and there we got a much more fluent you know, topography. So let's zoom back out again. Okie dokie. And even although this is very early, I'm going ahead and I'm going to do some larger modifications by using, for instance, the pole tool, the pole 2 tool, and I'm going to stretch the eyes a bit smaller and bring them further forward, like so. Ta-da! And yeah, let's move on to the mouth area. And just take this entire area and extend it. And first I'm going to shape it. That's the other thing, you kind of want to shape the area first before you extend it or extrude it. Because after that, you're just going to move around the new polygons. And you know, it just comes in more handy that way. Stretch. And let's see what we can change. Like, for instance, right now I see that since there's, you know, such a strange, you know, if you look at that shape, that would never really make some decent lips. Or at least it makes a very complicated outline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin these quads around like that. See if it's something I like. Might want to keep it. Why not? And then I take these polygons, super shift them again, make them a bit smaller, and see if I shape the outline of the lips with those. From the side I stretch it a bit more flat. You know, you always want to stay in control of your geometry. You always want to know where it is from all these sides. I mean, from the top view not so much. But from the front view and the side view you get a really nice idea. Alright, that would become a very small mouth, so I'm going to make it a bit larger right now. Like so, bring it a bit upward, and I extend it again, stretch it smaller, and pull it back inside, extend it again, and I create the gum area, like that, stretching it larger again. You want them also to stay somewhat homogeneous in size. And in the top view now you can see that it's still convex. Now I use rotate to make it concave, like so. That's much nicer. Drag points, you know, just overall to make it more like a, you know, like a, the inside the cave, the hollow section of a mouth. I mean, you could, if you wanted to be really, you know, diligent, you could make another extension in there to get a much more, you know, evolved shape inside. But it's not really necessary, actually, never, hardly ever. At least not right now, for sure not. So let's take care of the lips right away. So there are a whole bunch of observations about lips, and one of which is that the upper lip usually goes over the lower lip. So because of that, I'm right now gonna make the lower lip first, and then I will make the upper lip. And for that I first prepare, you know, the outline of the lower lip there. Doesn't look like much over here. And then I extend it, stretch it by grabbing outside of it. As you can see, I grabbed it outside of it and stretch it like that. Stretch it from the front a little bit, and then maybe even rotate. In the top view I can see that. And then drag points so that it gets more smoothly back into the former polygons, into the surrounding polygons. So that's somewhat of a round lip, kind of lipish. And now you're going to grab the upper lip, and I want to see more of the outline facing forward. Kind of like that. It's okay. You can see how it makes that arc here. I'm looking at the, you know, the perforated cage of that geometry right now. Like I'm looking at that outline, because the subdivided cage doesn't quite show as much of what's going to happen now when I extend it. See, when I extend it, pop, it shows more the outline of the non-subdivided geometry. So this looks like a very dangerous lip. And what we're going to do right now is the upper lip usually has this kind of distinct curling where the middle part almost kind of like it faces forward, but towards the angle of the mouth, towards the side of the mouth, it curls inward. And so I'm going to regard that right away. So we're going to take care of that right away. So now, for instance, if I were to do extend selection, as you can see, it would really go straight to the surrounding polygons. And we can use those right now to drag some points around, like so. Okie dokie. Now we can see a whole bunch of things that are not very pretty, and we're going to take care of them right away. Like one of which, for instance, is this entire construction here on the side. All these edges come towards this one vertex, this poor vertex here, and we have to kind of relieve it a little bit, So spin quads, and it already is a little bit more relaxed. And let's go right into the inside of the angle and spin quads over here to continue that curling of the upper lip towards the inside of the mouth. So, okay. Oh, it starts to look a little bit healthier, Not too healthy yet, but it'll come. So, a bit of drag points just to get a, you know, a bit of nicer shape. And let's move around a little bit more, and let's take care of the area around the mouth. Do some spin quads, and I'm opening space, which I will use to add geometry to the center of the nose and to the center of the upper eyelid. I'm also going to curl the inside of the mouth a little bit, further in, so that it's really like you can see it from that view a little bit. See that it goes to the inside of the mouth there. Give it a bit more room. And I'm going to use all of these polygons right now, extend them, and in the front view, stretch them slim again. Side view, bring them back out. And now you can see I'm relaxing the whole geometry a little bit and bring them into shape. So we've got this, fine little nipple in the lip already. Okay, so let's add some nostrils real quick. Pick these two polygons, so I know we're gonna use them. Extend them, stretch, stretch. Alright, and we have some geometry here now. And just for like they say, shits and giggles, I'm gonna change the topography here for a second, but it's really not necessary. I'm gonna take care of that in a moment. So right now what we're gonna take care of is the nose tip, because it's really absolutely frightening right now. So I'm just gonna stretch it a bit slimmer and see that I shape it already a tiny little bit. You can see that this area is still absolutely horrifying. So with drag points, I'm just, freeing it a little bit. And this entire construction here seems very, like, it's not elegant yet. You see how this line goes up here and breaks? This is not pretty. We have two possibilities of dealing with that. One is, to just, get rid of a polygon and do it like that, but that would be ugly. Another break would happen. It's not pretty. So let's not do it like this, but instead, let's pick these upper polygons here, these two, and spin quartz over here, and you can see how already that line leads to above the nose, which is already kind of interesting, even if by far not perfect. But it's better. What we want to do too is now we want to define the nose a little bit better, and we can also see that there's this break and this star, so let's address that right away by spinning that quad, and it already starts to become a little bit more pleasant to look at, piece by piece. And then sometimes I do just experimental things. We've just changed that to, that edge to flow just like it does right now. But for experimental reasons, I'm just going to spin it again. And look at that. Actually turned out pretty nice. So let's add some nostrils, like some, some way to the inside of the head. And we just pick these polygons where they're supposed to become whole. Extend them, stretch them a little bit, extend them again, move them inside a little bit, and extend it and move it inside, and move it inside again, and stretch it a bit smaller. This is going to be the whole. And you don't want to see all that way up the nose, and usually light doesn't quite get there. Alrighty, so what do we have? Some strange kind of, I don't know what. So the eyes are way too high up in the head. We want to get them somewhat into the center of the head. And let's just first address that by either selecting them, whereby you could use extend selection to, you would, for instance, just grab the inside of that eye and then just hit extend selection. And that way you really can nicely select all of the polygons of the eye. And you could move that. That's one way of doing it. Or we can use one of our fancy, fall off tools. Like for instance, the vortex tool. That comes in very handy in situations like that. And again, the mouse pointer is our pivot. So that's, practical. Alright. Let's do some more shaping first, because I still want to like what I'm looking at, and so far it's a bit challenging. So let's see. That entire area here is total chaos at this, like currently. We can do, just because I see that this might be a nice opportunity, that beautiful collapse polygon trick. select these 3 polygons, for instance, in that case, extend, and collapse. And now we merge the triangles together into quads again, and that might make this area already a bit more interesting to look at. And here, just spin quad, and then we've got a much nicer flow already. So, alright. So that entire area over here still shows, it's a nice, like such a star is a nice indication that something is not really desirable at that point. So we're gonna go there, spin quads, and see what we can salvage over here. What we can change. And I'm not too fond of what's going on up here either, so I'm gonna spin quads, merge these 2 polygons together. They weren't triangles actually. I'm gonna spin quads here, and see how the geometry gets reduced again dramatically. So we have gotten rid of quite a few polygons with these few moves. And it's a really nice way to clean up your mesh. Well, if we were going for displacement, we'd almost be all set already with the amount of geometry, almost. Kind of disregarding the animation possibilities. But yeah, I'm just gonna shape the eye a little bit nicer. Sure. And yeah, let's have a look at, it's still very, very low res, as you can see already. And the head sits in that in a very strange way. So I'm gonna pick the entire head right now, like that. I'm just gonna move it around and see if I can get a nicer position, so it's again nicer to look at. Currently this is nothing yet. So let's see. Alright, so yeah, select these polygons just to see what's happening here, and then just change it around a bit. Shaping. So there's a very weak jaw, but we haven't dealt with the jaw much yet. So let's make some room for a nice new chin. For that matter, I might just pick all of those. It's a little bit naughty, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Extend it and make it a chin. Go to the front view and stretch it, see, and it instantly becomes more defined. Bring it into place, like so. And then let's see what we can change in the topography right away. Spin quads. But I don't quite like that much yet. Because it doesn't... I like it if the topography suggests more of an actual anatomy. So let's spin a little bit the edges around just to get a bit nicer anatomy feel to it. So it becomes more interesting already. Of course the noses is still an absolute horror right now. So we should deal with that too. He's got quite a picky nose at this point, so let's make it a bit sharper. Drag points. Just drag some stuff around so we get more of a desirable design. I mean, this is still very, very low res, but nothing to be too worried about. And I'm just relaxing the geometry right now more than anything. And sometimes I just use this time to kind of, you know, study, think, and you know, just to relax for a moment. I want to make this a bit more flat, a bit farther out. Let's make it completely a him. Give him a really strong jaw. So just select this area and extend it again. Stretch it from in the front, like out to the side like that. You can see how it becomes already extraordinarily more pronounced. And to get a nicer flow here, I spin quads. Okay, that looks somewhat interesting. It could become something. Let's spin quads here again. Alright, that looks almost too fluent. Alright. But again, I mean, if we were to deal with displacement, this is the kind of detail you kind of want to take care of, you know, working with ZBrush or whatever you use for generating your displacement maps. Alright. Okie dokie. Let's look at the smooth shade of it, because it will reveal a lot more what we're actually looking at already. So, looks like we've got a pretty huge head and very small rest of the torso right now. So, just because I want to, I'm just going to scale down the head a little bit. Because I have symmetry turned on, I'm just going to grab it somewhat in the center and then scale it down, like so. Move it a bit forward. And then I'm going to grab whatever would be the throat area and move it a bit back. And it already starts to look a bit more healthy. Let's look at the wireframe again. Wireframe is already quite dense, I must say. But we can work with it. So let's look at a possible area for a muscle. And this is a more wacky maneuver, but very interesting. So let's assume we want to have a muscle that goes from behind the ear, you know, towards the, you know, front of the chest. So I'm going to grab all these polygons which are around that possible muscle, for example. Just preparing the outline a little bit of it. Look at the side view, you know, you can see somewhat where these polygons are. You know, when in doubt, what you can do, for instance, also just turn off the sub-patches for that. If you are working with lightwave. Anyway, turn it back on. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend that. And in the perspective view, as you know, rotate it so that I can stretch that smaller in one vertical, you know, orientation, and a little bit horizontally, and then I move it so that I can make it flat in somewhat of that diagonal angle from behind the ear towards the front of the chest. Alright, and what we're gonna do now is the most wacky of all things, a lot of spin quads that would make out of this wacky construction a clear band of polygons. Doing that, so I grab these two polygons, for example. I'm going to grab these, and we're almost there. This here looks like something we really do not want. So let's see how we get rid of that best. We could do that in many different ways. Like right now, for instance, the most hardcore way is take these two polygons and, you know, there we've got one way of making one band of polygons here. But then we have this remainder to deal with. Also no problem, you know, just spin quads. And there you go. It's almost gone. Do that again. And there we have something to work with. Or we can do it like that, that's fine. So we've got somewhat of a nice line. That would be very good for, you know, it's preparing for animation. Let's take care of the Adam's apple. Take that area, extend it, stretch it smaller. See, I did it first in the side view, then in the front view, and I really know it's smaller. You know, and well, let's give it a bit of a shape. I want it to tuck in down here a little bit, so I move it really underneath the previous points, you know, the surrounding points. But here I put it a bit out, just so we have a bit more of a manly Adam's apple. And I'm gonna go to these, you know, polygons to the surrounding of that here, and spin quads again. And you can see how it gives an interesting definition. So what you don't want, for instance, like look at this right now. See how they stretch? This is very unorganic. This is very not pretty. So there are several ways of dealing with that, and what I do is the usual. I take those polygons that stretch so much, I extend them, and then I stretch them smaller. So, and then I spin quads to the surrounding like so. And not only do we have those stretched polygons solved, but we also have some new stuff to do some more, you know, to get some more shape into it, which can be very nice. Looks a little bit like he did get a facelift recently. May not exactly want that, but well, you know, it's something. So, yeah, okie dokie. Let's look at it in smooth shade again. Again, gives us a much nicer, you know, look at the geometry altogether. Oh, you see here that stuff, and when I see something like that, that strange pinched line, I don't like it, and I really address it right away. It's a compulsion, I guess. So I grab, for instance, these polygons at the back of the neck. I could, you know, try to find some kind of, you know, nice way of you know, just making a bit, or would almost do it. But we want some muscles there anyway. So I'm gonna grab these two polygons, extend them, stretch them smaller, you know, use the perspective again to stretch them in a way that instantly makes it more like I want it. In that case, bulgy a bit more. And let's see how we can change the way it connects to the head. Just like that. Maybe already interesting enough. I don't know fully yet. And let's see. Okay. See, when I see an area that I don't like for instance over here, and you see the strange bulge, I'm just going to select that area for a second and look at what's happening here. Look at the topography for a moment. And then I'm going to change things around a little bit and do, for instance, a spin quad and see if that makes it nicer. And it makes it more interesting already. We know that the shoulders, for instance, they are not finished. I mean, it's just a, you know, preliminary type of solution. And so it's not too troublesome if something happens way out of here. And right now we don't want to take too much care of the body because there's no body yet. Just gonna do a little bit of, you know, modeling around a little bit, just to make it nicer, more interesting. You know, let's give him a tiny bit of a more evolved shoulder. It's kind of neat. Yeah. So we could do this fancy, strange alien thingy. It's funny, but we don't have to. Oopsie, there. Yeah. He has his shoulders raised rather high. Just take that area, stretch it like that, a little bit down. And we've got something a bit more interesting to look at already. And let's see if we can get a collarbone in there a little bitty. I'm actually gonna take these polygons all together, extend them, stretch them. See, it's always the same, extending, stretching. It's really just the same move all the time. And trust me, it doesn't get boring. It does not get boring. It's modeling. Extend that to get a little bit of a visible bone almost. Oh, let's switch back to wireframe so we can see more what's happening. And I can see it too. Switch spin quads, but if we can, you know, we should try to actually get the shape of the collarbone into the topography. That's a very good idea to do that, you know. Let's see how we want to get it in there. See, for instance, here it looks to me like something's funny. For instance, that star is again an indication we should change something around that area. So I'm going to spin these quads right here, and we've got a much nicer flow of that, you know, muscle back into the chest there. Although this ending I don't exactly like. Let's see if we can just change it like that. And then not only does it become smoother, but it will also help us with that collarbone a little bit. So, and this area here I'm not too keen of either. So let's see what we can change here. So I move, give a little bit more room to see if I can switch that edge around. Zoom out a tiny little bit. And yeah, see, sometimes it's just a whole bunch of switching things around. Oh, let's see what's nicer here, because there might be the end of the muzzle that could actually be kind of interesting. Well, let's see. Let's turn on the smooth shade, and well, we got a hugely exaggerated, strange shape here. I mean, it's kind of silly because really, I mean, especially things like collarbone and this kind of stuff, you really want to rather do with displacement than trying to model that into your character. There are plenty of reasons for why you should do that instead. The other thing I don't like is this. You can see even in the smooth shaded display that they develop a very bizarre stretching over here. So let's do something. What I'm going to do is, although I have 3 polygons picked, if I spin quads, you can see how the connection changes, and I got the ability to spin those into an entirely new order. I really figured you didn't want to hear me coughing. So I paused it for a sec, so no worries. No voodoo stuff happened in the meantime. I've changed it, but now we've lost a bit of the definition of that bone. And to get that back, it might be possible that we simply just, bring these points of the surrounding polygons a bit closer. Can't see it in wireframe shade. See, it's not possible to really see it. You can kind of guess, but you can't exactly see it. And so let's switch back to smooth shade. We can see a little bit better what's going on there. Right now, the collarbone looks like it would be way too flat. It should go much farther back. So I could either try this, which is totally hideous, of course. The other thing we can try is, instead of moving those back, we're just going to fold them around and see what happens. So that could be all we need to get an interesting shape. I'm just going to move all this a little bit back. And let's see. It's just a little bit of spoiler at the bottom of this head. Not too important right now. Oh, yeah, but I often can't let things go like that. I mean, I at least want them to be somewhat decent. And because of that, I'm just gonna do a little bit more of dragging points around, and just so it looks a bit more neat. Okie dokie. So, whoa, let's rotate this out a little bit. So, there we go. Nice enough. Yeah, that somehow it looks a little bit too far back. Okie dokie. So, well, all of this stuff here is not really important right now. Let's go back to the head itself. Because it doesn't have ears yet, and it doesn't quite have a forehead yet. I mean, this stuff is very underdeveloped at this point. So, I'm a little bit afraid that I have to interrupt that recording for a second, just before it gets too big, and then my poor machine might fail. We don't want that. So, I'm gonna save right now. In fact, in a second. There we go. So, right now I'm going to interrupt this and save it, and we'll move on to more details of the modeling. Actually, can't let that slide here. Yeah, well, doesn't quite matter really. Not right now, at least. Let me do this real quick, just because I can't resist. So, if you want some more distinction here, some more definition, I grab these polygons, extend them. You can see how they crossed over here. I didn't see that in that view. Here I can see it. So now I go into the top view and then just make them, split them apart again. And so now we get much nicer definition. Bring that a bit more. yeah, those tenants, they are a bit more straight usually. And also here, it's spin quartz. Yeah, those are all, I mean, a lot of it is just design, a question of design and aesthetics and what you like and what you actually want to create. But the method is clear, you know, you see you want to add a different type of detail, and then you just go there and you just do a extend. It's really strangely strong, but, you know, whatever. It's not really the key thing to be concerned with right now. Yeah, so yeah, look at the topography and just always make these tiny changes. Like, you know, here, if I really don't need something, or if something really bothers me visibly, you know, it's like then I'm just gonna go ahead and change it. These things, they have a tendency to change during the course of your modeling. Ta-da-ta-ta-da. Well, strange. Yeah, there's a funny kink here. I should save now, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should certainly save. But it's fine. It's fine. I can't. I mean, it's impossible. It's like it's really like a compulsion. If I'm seeing something, I kind of have to do it. There we go. All right. It's fine. So let me save this real quick, and we'll proceed in a second. So, for most of you, it probably doesn't even seem like something else has happened, but in the meantime, I have saved part 1 and thought about how I could continue in part 2 in terms of explaining to you some of the anatomical choices and how they translate into the low-res geometry. So let's start off again by just having a wireframe shade mode turn on and examine the mess. Well, it certainly doesn't look like a Homo sapiens sapiens. Or does it? Oh, well, at least not entirely. But it is a good start, because what we've got is a lot of geometry. In fact, how much geometry do we have? In fact, I haven't even checked that. Let's have a look. 476 polygons. That is quite heavy. Usually that would be by far, that would be more than I usually have for, whenever I proceed with displacement and such. So, I'm just looking at some of these areas and making them a bit prettier already. A bit more, well, dare I say, natural. And just opening up some of that stuff to have a nicer look at it. And this entire area here doesn't look very nice. It's very underdeveloped, and there are not many polygons in the first place. At least they're not there in a way that I like it. So I extend the exact part that I don't like and do something very strange. I collapse the polygons and merge them again. And I know we've done that quite a bit, but I've done it here just to basically start from scratch with the way they are, they were, with the topography, with the flow of the edges. And I think that helped quite a bit. If I were to just having spin quads, it probably would have taken a lot longer. But now I'm going to spin quads. And oh my goodness, look at all the polygons we've actually gotten rid of. And the shape is almost, you could say almost nicer than before. Not as defined, but far more under our control. So let's look at it a little bit from a distance and use our point statistics to get rid of all of the, see, by now redundant points. They are connected to no polygons, so we can get rid of them. Alright, so let's look at the smooth shade again and see what happened. And that's okay. I'd say before we bounce into the forehead area, let's give this guy some ears. Just gonna select 2 polygons. We're gonna make ears out of 2 polygons. There we go, because that's plenty. It's gonna become more anyway. So I'm looking at the side view right now, and sometimes, if you see my mouse pointer down here, if I see a kink like that in a strange area, I don't know, it's just like, it just bothers me. So I switch back to point mode temporarily, just to have nothing selected, and to retain my former polygon selection. Switch to point mode, use drag points, and just clean up a little bit here. I like doing that right away. It's really a good idea. You know, while you edit, doesn't matter. So let's switch back to point selection, to polygon selection. Our polygons are still selected. Very nice trait. And well, let's just extend them and stretch them into a better origin for our ears from the side view, and from the front view I do the same. I make it flat, a bit like that. And from the top view, I think it's okay. I'm just looking at what it looks like, but I could rotate it a little bit if I wanted to. Yeah. Well, we've got, I think, a decent origin for it here. I make it a bit wider, a bit larger. So, well, I think that's fine. And yeah, kind of outline what this might be like. And extend it again, stretch it a bit smaller. And what we're going to do now is we're going to select the rim of our ear. It's basically going to be what is the visible ear. And we're just going to extend this entire thingy, like so. Rotate it outwards like that. You can see how it already kind of starts looking like an ear, quite obviously. Zoom into it, a little bit back out, and then make it transition a bit more nice out of the head, whereby we go more into that a little bit later. Just at first I just prepare that rough outline to be somewhat, you know, decent. Nothing too special. Okie dokie. And now let's go into the inside of the ear. And I'd say let's extend that too, stretch it a bit smaller, and stretch it inside of the head like that, you know, bring it back into the head. And then I'm going to pick the polygons on the inside of the rim. I think that would be fine. Just already do a bit of shaping here, like so. In fact, I'm going to move this. I'm going to make the inner rim already a little bit tighter, because you'll see what happens after I do another extend. There we go. And use stretch, grab it in the center and make it larger actually. So that way we get a little bit of the, you know, the bowl of the ear. I should probably grab a book, an anatomy book, and learn all of the proper anatomical, you know, definitions to get the lingo more straight. But the thing is, I guess most of you don't know the Latin names of all of those things. A lot of you probably do, but I don't want to think about that yet. Or right now. I'm too ashamed as it is. So, and well, let's take. See, we've got basically that definition underneath the rim already. So there's somewhat of a definition. So now we take the largest inner curl of the ear, and what we do is we just pull out these points as opposed to just creating new geometry. Now we see if we can change the connection of it. Oh, let me switch back to wireframe shade so you can see a bit better. And see, let's look at this for a second. and looks much like, oopsie, this is not very nice. Hold on, this is not very nice. Let's simplify the geometry for a second, because we can make it complicated very quickly again. There we go. Oh, let's do it like this. Yeah, it's fine. And let's see if we can curl. First of all, let's curl the outside of the rim a bit to the inside. Let's see. Yes. So, I grab these polygons over here. Oddly enough, because I want to get a distinct piece of flesh, basically, connecting the larger rim of the ear with, the front part of the ear. And to do that, I extend those 3 polygons in that case, stretch them a bit smaller, use my perspective here, stretch underneath it, stretch it a bit smaller like that. See, and I kind of know what's happening here now. I use drag points, and let's zoom into it all the way right now for a second. There we go. And let's see what kind of cleanup stuff we can do right away, because it looks really messy down here. Let's do some spin quads and clean up a little bit, merge, and let's move this up. And I don't like this star very much. It's not very pretty. Now we have to see what would be the best idea and how to deal with it. Let's come to this in a moment. First, let's clean up this again. Spin quad. This one becomes redundant. And there we go. That should be somewhat decent, or at least a little bit more interesting. Grab these polygons and just curl them down. For a second, I just don't care about the topography for a moment, but I think I should. So let me spin quads for a moment, because I don't like this construction very much. And also, this stuff here, I think nobody will ever see that. And if there's an area that nobody will ever see, if there's such an area, you kind of want to get, simplify that as much as possible, because it would be a waste to have it. Oopsie, a waste to have it in there. So that's simplified enough. So, not too keen on what's happening over here either, but I'm not too sure what would be the best idea there right now. And especially with the wires only, we can't quite judge it. So let's look at the smooth shape for a second and do some broader shaping there. I mean, it's all a little bit silly, because all of that stuff is so easy to handle if you do displacement. With displacement, you really don't have to care about that too much anymore. So, see, I'm spinning stuff around a little bit, and I've just yeah, I think that's nicer. Okay, let's do it like that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another extend with these. And I'm looking at the top view for a second. And I know, for instance, that somewhere in this area, that would be here, so I can take this and stretch it in top view, for example, if that appears to be more handy. And let's do it. Look, now it becomes much nicer, much nicer. Yeah, some of these things are hard to explain, but you can see as I spin it around, I basically bring that curve around, bring it to curve, the outline of the ear, to curve it to the inside of the ear. Spin quads again, and now I have this area here, which is going to be our way into the inside of the head. Yeah, it can be just a little bit out of the way there. So that way we have probably nice enough of a definition there. There's probably anyway already kind of a the definition of that stuff might already be decent enough, you know, to be truly recognizable as an ear. You can go all crazy and even start that little, you know, build that little nipple that we have at the end here. But without, you know, without using displacement, it's as you can see, quite a bit more tedious to build an ear. You know, do another extend here for more definition. This is all way over the top. But I'm gonna do it just so you've seen it. Sure. So this is like a skin flap, you know, like it's almost like, yeah, it's like not the purposeful part of the design. It's just a side effect of the design of an ear. I mean, in reality, sort of. I mean, you know, it's like how the skin connects, how it's woven. Yeah. It's somewhat of an ear. There we go. Now we spend a lot of time with it, which is, you know, usually the kind of, you know, it's worthy. The ear, the complication of an ear usually should be considered worthy of spending some time with it. And right now it looks very funny, more like monkey ears. Look at the guy in just in a full perspective view. Very strange. It almost looks like accidentally. It's funny. It looks so pinched. Let us see in Lightwave's perspective amount. Ah, yeah, there we can see there. Aha! Let's make it a little bit less dramatic in the perspective. So there we go. Now we can stretch this guy a little bit differently there. And let's go back to the ears for a second, because we haven't looked at the back side of the ear. For that I'm just going to make a tiny little bit more room, like so. And then just extend. Stretch it smaller. And it's supposed to be, you know, kind of like around that, because the ear is you know, it's a skin flap. And so we're trying to make this as natural as possible, because nowadays with all the subsurface scattering and such, it will become quite visible whether the ear is modeled nice or not, you know, especially if it's about that piece of skin it represents there. So, yeah, well, yeah, let's say it's okay. Let's rather deal with it over here. And down here it's still way too thick, so I'm just gonna rotate that in a little bit like that. There we go. Let's look at the geometry all together. Haha! I really don't like those. Those are not pretty. So I'm gonna take these 3 polygons, extend them, collapse them, and there we've got some, oh, ouch, something much nicer in an instant. There, look at that. It's way nicer. Alrighty. Okay, there are a few things I don't think that are necessarily shouldn't. I have that sometimes. Radical change. Large polygon. Spinning the quad on a large polygon can look very dramatic. So, you know, see, some of these things I've just done that I didn't even think too much about the model. They were almost just like, you know, reflexes, mechanical type of choices, you know. And I see this area here too, which is very bad. That star again screams for attention. You know, there's something supposed to happen. And so now I crawl back forward into the other parts of the face, and just kind of make him a bit more, you know, smoother. And oh, we're not even done with the ear yet. What am I doing? Haha. Just do a few little things. Nothing too dramatic. When and why did I change that? Ah, yeah. There is a reason. Ooh, so much nonsense. Yeah, I'm really used to doing a lot of displacement stuff right now. I mean, it's not common that I, you know, do all this detailed polygon modeling, and neither should you. You should definitely consider doing more displacement stuff. It's a much better choice. Yo, but still we want this to look somewhat nice, so I'm just gonna spend some time with that. And let's give it a little bit of I don't know what on earth do you call this part of the ear? You know, that fun little nipple here. Extend, bring it in like so, and there we've got that. And now we've got 3 polygons here that scream for being collapsed and reconnected. Merged actually, back into quads. There we go, that seems already much more smooth and natural. And let's see if we can actually do something like that over here, because this is really the horror. Extend, collapse. And it looks a little less horrible, but not much less horrible. I think we might have to go ahead and add more to that, but we didn't even pay too much attention to the forehead at this point. So if we do that, we might extend some stuff over here, which might solve what we've got over here. So sometimes, you know, don't waste too much time if you see that there's something more dramatic happening elsewhere, or that something more dramatic has to happen elsewhere. Because everything you do anywhere ripples down the chain, so to say. It ripples down into the rest of the head. So let's look at the placement of the ears. They're very, 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 very low. So let's go back into our quad view, and I outline the ears like so. I'm just gonna fine-tune the selection a little bit, and then let's move it into place. Rotate it a bit maybe. And we want the, you know, the part where the ear starts on top, we want that to line up somewhat with the angle of the eye. I think that seems more natural to me. I'm not sure about the size of those ears yet either, or how far they stand up. It kind of feels a little high up, doesn't it? A bit further back, maybe. Somehow it doesn't strike me as perfect, but whatever. This is aesthetical choices. At least you know how to move those ears, and whether you want them higher up or lower or further back, this will be all up to you. Again, this is much less about anatomy than it is about modeling. But again, I have a hard time to hold back. I have to make these stupid, silly little changes. They're very important to me. Alright. If something, you know, I've rotated around so much that there could be some pinching that might not be pretty. So I'm looking at the geometry again. And I say, you know, it's actually kind of okay. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. No, it's fine. Okie dokie. Let's have a look at the forehead then. Forehead. Oh, we spent quite some time on the ears, I guess. Ah, yeah. It was worth it. I think. To me. Alright. The forehead. let's do it in 2 steps. Let's take the the temple area a little bit up there, extend that, stretch it smaller, go to a decent angle, stretch it a little bit more into shape again. And what we are developing right now is a little bit more definition into that area. So, and then we're going to get some more geometry for whatever is right above the bridge of the nose. Extend it. I go into the front view right now because I can see that much easier over here. At that point where I'm just worrying about topography, I look at this and I look back in the perspective view and I see I can make these changes. And I have to, examine that for a second to make good judgment about what it is that we want here. Could be kind of interesting. I mean, it seems a little dangerous to me, but in terms of topography, and also when we animate it, when you do animation, areas like that can be very sensitive to deformation. Let's see what would be the best idea. Well, ultimately, especially in animation, it would be much nicer, especially for these areas, to have some way in which we can preserve the skull underneath that area, so that it really seems like only the skin moves over top. But that's an entirely different tutorial. Alright, so let's go to the sides and change a little bit the topography again. Let's make it all a bit nicer. And at some point here we need to keep one of those stars, and we have to decide for which one it is that we want to keep. And there's something very bulgy on top of the head. So see, I made this change, just these very few polygons in the top there, and it truly does ripple down the chain, it does ripple down the rest of the geometry. And it might even require us to add more polygons elsewhere. It might. Trying to evade that right now for a moment. And again, we want to watch out that the transition of high density areas to low density areas is rather smooth. It's always a good idea. Let's look at the smooth shade for a moment. Oh my god! What do we have here? Frankenstein! Alright. Let's get a bit more definition by moving those points a bit closer together. Not that it makes it any less Frankensteinish, but it will help. So yeah, I'm making these adjustments. It's very difficult to really explain. It's like almost aesthetical choices, but the gist of it is, the closer these points are together, the closer polygons are together, the sharper an edge would become. If I would take, for instance, that outline, let's just turn on the flat polygons, and I would make these, would bring these polygons very close together like that. Let me show that to you for a second. I look at the frontal view right now to make sure, that they are really close together. Can be irritating. Alright, so like so, you will see that there's almost like a distinct edge here. You see how much sharper that edge became there? Yeah, there you can see, absolutely great. So this is one of those things you kind of want to watch out for, or be aware of. I mean, you could use edge weighting for things like that, if you specifically want things like that to happen. But we're not going to do that now. So on this area now shows also some trouble that I was rather neglecting before. And let's see how we can solve that. That's the entire, all of this entire area we haven't really paid too much attention to, not too much. So let's see. I do like what's happening underneath the eye here. That's pretty nice. So in other words, we would want to rather change something above here. So let's see. Let's be. But sometimes you want to be a bit bolder. You know, if you kind of can see that just spinning quads won't do too much to the area. Whereby this is not that bad, but boring. You just grab the polygons that trouble you, and just extend, collapse them, and then do changes like that with that method. That is really, you know, sometimes it's very, the stuff that happens is just right. It's one of the magics of this entire modeling style, you know. It's like, if you stick to these moves, the geometry and the method behind it is going to work with you. Yeah, it's one of those interesting things about it. I used to be extraordinarily fascinated by that. And by now I'm very used to it. I actually make use of it. But it took a long time. I mean, and sometimes, even now, I'm sometimes absolutely fascinated by how much it does all by itself. So this kink here really troubles me tremendously. So to get rid of this kink, I'm going to do something very strange. I'm going to take the 3 polygons up here, because I know I can sort of reconnect it, but not right now. It's not very pretty. So I'm just going to take these 3 polygons, extend them, make them a bit smaller, just the usual move. Go to the side view to see that I keep somewhat of the curvature. The more geometry I have there, the more definition will show to it. So you will see, you know, a much more stronger edge. And that's another thing to keep in mind again. Same thing as we showed you down here. So I've created this new, you know, extension, and now I'm going to reconnect it and see if we can heal some of the not so pretty things that are happening there. Let's move this a bit back, a bit far. This is very, I mean, this gets a lot of definition now. I'm absolutely not used to that anymore. Long live displacement. Okie dokie. What does this look like? Strange. Alright, let's grab this area and just drag points a little bit. I said a little bit, a whole lot. But, you know, a lot of times it's just these very tiny changes that you do in the pursuit of, you know, the kind of shapes you're looking for. And we can see that there's some kind of strange fine fold. Alright. It looks a little bit like a marine with his haircut. I'm not sure about you, but I don't want that. Nothing against Marines, no. But I don't want this to end up being a propaganda tutorial. Times like this. Anyway, it does sure look sort of marinish, but well, maybe it's just because he's so very aerodynamic right now. Alright, well, let's look at him like this and see what happens. So the eyes are really terrifying. I mean, the more interesting the rest becomes, the more you see, you know, when little things are funky. Well, but again, I mean, there's almost questionable whether this should be part of a tutorial. I mean, the repairs certainly, yeah, but you know, when it comes to aesthetics and this is a different type of tutorial. I mean, right now this is really all about showing to you the technique. And like, for instance, you could consider it a part of a technique for sure if it's about creating little skin folds. Like right now, this is a very round, you know, very primitive shape. I mean, if you look at the eye. But what we would want for an eyelid, for instance, is we would want the eyelid to fold over and under at some places, for example. And like right here, we don't have a lot of geometry. Let's look at the wireframe shade. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky to do that. So one way of just, you know, saying, well, adding more geometry is just pick a segment of it, make a bit more room and there, and then just extend it, stretch it smaller. I picked more of the inside because, you know, it's just for safety. And let's clean it up a little bit, you know, just so we can see it better. Let's reconnect. And grab that polygon, stretch. Just so we have it all a bit more clean. And sometimes, you know, when things get confusing, all you need to do to make it entirely confusing is switch the subpatches back off. But it actually shows you much nicer, you know, what the geometry actually looks like. So, okie dokie. Yeah, look at it from different angles here, just to kind of make the whole geometry a bit more neat, a bit cleaner. And it's almost clean up now. As you can see, it comes together. And it might want to have a little bit of an arc in there. And let's switch the NURBS back on, the subpatches back on. Meta NURBS, if any. But yeah, I know it's not. Don't worry, I know it's not NURBS. No. And I know you don't call it Meta NURBS anymore. Real shame, I like the name. Whoa, yeah, so, looks like we almost have what we want, which is kind of funny, because it happened a little bit earlier than I anticipated here. But we can only start judging that once we look at the smooth shade. And yeah, you know, it folds a little bit over. It's kind of interesting to start. Alright. There's a funky kink in here, and you can kind of imagine what it might be because of the density of polygons. There's a lot more density on the outside than here on the inside, and that's why it's getting automatically some more definition on the outside then, which can make it appear like it's a bit kinked. And then it should look more interesting. Really huge, those eyes. Really huge. So let's do the good old extend selection thingy. And just let's make them a little bit smaller like that. Bring it a bit closer together. Okay. And it looks like the eyes are a little bit far inside of the head here, I think. Not sure. Maybe it's just because of how I look. But I have troubles with eyes that are so far inset. Oopsie, haha, okie dokie. So, well, there's one other way to make sure that the eyes are a little bit more natural, and that way is to actually place an eyeball inside and see what happens. And that's what I always do, absolutely always, unless I forget doing it, and then I have to do it later, and no. So, and it's a good idea to actually take care of that even when you do a model as low as just for displacement, because yeah, it's I mean, most tools for displacement don't make it exactly easy to place eyeballs or other objects, you know, into your geometry. So you might want to do that in advance, and also to make really nice and round shapes. See, sometimes I just bounce around. I look at my geometry like that, and then I just make some quick, you know, judgments, and then just do little tweaks. Do that quite often. Yeah, for instance, here also the ear lobe is a little bit strange. I'm just going to tuck this a bit back in. I'm going to grab this area, and relax it a bit more again. There we go. It looks a bit strange down here. Usually the definition of the jaw is not necessarily directly underneath the ear, but instead it's a little bit lower over here. You could see a bit more how it gets defined. Also, you must imagine that there's in the animation bone that's supposed to move underneath the skin. So the skin over here, for instance, is supposed to almost stay in place while that definition of the jaw should move underneath, you know, like when the mouth would be open, you know, you would have the jawbone rather be defined down here, you know, just as an example. So, you know, the more you add definition in that area, the more funny it's going to look in animation. Alright. Eyeballs, yeah, we wanted to play some eyeballs. I mean, we could, if we wanted to. We don't have a lot of definition in the mouth area either. We didn't pay too much attention to that yet. Or maybe you have and I didn't. It'd be horrible. So I spin some quads over here. Get that area a bit nicer. Just curl that a little bit back up. Oh, this is very little defined. Oh, what am I doing to you? Yeah. But see, sometimes you get definition only by just tweaking the geometry already. That's already enough. Well, the thing here is, again, what troubles me is, again, for displacement, this would be already far beyond perfect. I mean, it would be just right. But, oh, what happened here? For shame. I guess there are some points crossing over, and I didn't see that. So let's look at, see, you can see it right here in the frontal view. Ta-da! In lightwave, if these points cross over, and probably in any application, the symmetry acts up a little bit funny. And so right now, see, the symmetry is perfectly fine again. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Yeah. So, what's nice like this or like that? It's kind of funny over here, but yeah. Ah, it's fine. Let's leave it like that. And let's leave at least a little bit of something for when we take all of this into displacement. Because in the following tutorials, we're going to start covering displacement. So this is just tutorial number 1, the low-res geometry modeling, or the secrets behind organic modeling. I think I might call it that. Yes. Somewhere, I wonder where, I've heard that if you put the name secrets into something like that, it sounds more appealing. And since for years people were asking me about my secrets, and I for years keep telling them it's not secrets, because I never hesitate to explain what I'm doing. I think by now I just accept it. Okay, it's secrets. And here you go. Have them all. All my secrets. Depending on how well I have explained it now, they might still be secrets. Never mind. So, this is what we're having so far. I still haven't made those eyeballs. Let me make those eyeballs real quick. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Eyeballs. Let's make a ball. And bring it into place. It's somewhat of a right size. I think that size is somewhat okay. I believe at least. Let's place them real quick. Let him look a little bit down there. Sure. As you can see, it just totally intersects like crazy. So by picking that eyeball as a background layer, let me mirror that to the other side real quick here. So picking that as a background layer, we can see where the parameter, how large the eyeball is. I mean, I don't have to explain to you what you already see in yourself, and so now I'm going into the side view and move it forward a little bit, into the front view and move it out a little bit, and beautiful flap we've just essentially lost. So let's get it back. And there you go. That should be that. See what all of this did to the surrounding geometry. Move out a little bit. That really does not look very pretty. Let's get the fold above the eyelid back. Let's fold the eyelid underneath again. There. Does this look like? Strange, and even more like me again. Nav. Alright, let's pick that. Stretch a bit. Sometimes I just don't model wildly just by judging the shape and by being too troubled about the geometry itself. Yeah, never be afraid. That's the other thing. Just never be afraid. Always be aware, but never be afraid. Sure. It still has something of Frankenstein, and whatever made me not so pretty. Though. It reminds me to somebody. I can't quite name it. This reminds me to a bad CG model. Damn it. Alright. Okie dokie. Well, you know. That would be pretty much it for right now. And you see the overall, you know, the level of densities between the polygons. It's not too sudden, the transitions. They are all very smooth. And that is good. That is what we want. Well, I hope that taught you a little bit already. Maybe even more, I hope so. I'm not sure, but I will not stop. It will continue very soon. And I can't leave this geometry like that. I just can't. This is just horrible. Let me do this real quick. Because this is just, I can't even look at it. It hurts. Oh, I think this is nicer, isn't it? I think it's nicer. I think it's a little bit better. It could be a lot better, but it doesn't matter. So, the wonders of extend, of stretch, of spin quads, and of drag points. And move and rotate and, you know, all the other things. But it's not too many. So you've seen it. I haven't used a lot of features, and you really don't. And you get to something really decent even while you're explaining it. Or trying to, in my case. Alright. Let that be the conclusion of it. Ta-da! Yeah, just for a little bit of fun. So, these highlights, I mean, if you're already looking at a shape like that, it's very interesting to look at the highlights because they are super revealing, you know, they really show your curvature quite well. It's very good for judgment. It's pretty nice to do that. But enough of it. Well, I might actually record another outro just so you see my face one more time. Or should I? I don't know. I shouldn't distract you from your studies now, and you know, don't forget it's scrub-ucation, so you can scrub back and forth all the time and see if there were some specific moves that you're interested in, and if you want to actually remodel exactly that head, I don't know, you want to? Well, it might be very interesting, you know, of course, you know, but more than anything, maybe I make an outro. You know what? I'm gonna make an outro. Alright, here comes the outro. So this is what I look like after about 2.5 hours of monologuing. I'm not sure if you've noticed that, but in fact not once have I saved. And that's one of those things that happens if you model like that. The speed of the modeling and, you know, the kind of control you have over it, it sort of makes it feel like it's, you know, there's no reason to, you know, to be afraid that you could lose something. But trust me, don't try this at home. Save more often than, you know, just save. I mean, especially what I do usually is when the geometry has reached a certain point and I start to do with the tiny tweaks, you know, then of course, you know, I save like crazy. Even it's the beauty of incremental saving. And the other thing that's actually fun about it is then, you know, to go back into revision. Well, you know that if you watch earlier revisions, you know, you see truly dramatic differences. Sometimes you wonder what, you know, made you believe that it was okay at that earlier point in time. Well, it is still a very coarse model, but again, we're going to take that into displacement in, I guess, even in the very next big session. And but for now, it gave you at least a very a very complete idea of how I do all that modeling, because nothing of that changes. This is how I model, and you saw all the all the little moves, and there are actually not many either. But it's important to understand where you use them, and it's important to keep an eye on your geometry, on your topography, and especially when it's an organic model like that, you kind of want to make it homogeneous, smooth. You don't want to have too sudden transitions that could for once reveal the technical nature of it, and on the other hand also break the kind of natural flow that especially things like skinned creatures have. Skin basically grows over bone, and it does make things smoother. Shapes are smooth unless there was some kind of really hideous war injury or other trouble. I don't want to be too insensitive there, but normally it should be rather smooth, and your topography should reflect that. What else? Well, I really hope you enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed making it. It's really fun, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to make a lot more, and hopefully I also get to cover animation, because it's one of those other things where I'd love to at least give you what I've learned in all these years. And well, I hope to see you soon then. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, it's let me see what time it is. It's 4 a.m. So I'd say good morning.